You're listening to
Sticky Note Conversations with Erica Washington.
Hey there, Sticky Note listeners. It's your host, Erica Washington. This week, we are doing a replay, but we're doing a replay of our other podcast, American Dreams, Reproductive Justice. This was season 2, and this episode featured Assemblyman Jovan Jackson. This was before he was an assemblyman, but I thought it was a great time to retell his story as we are in an election year. So if we can teach you and help you learn more about candidates that are running for office, I think that this platform should do that. In the meantime, we'll be back with new episodes shortly. Please enjoy this episode as much as we did. Legal disclaimer. Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy, does not endorse any candidate or candidate committee. We just tell good stories. In this episode of American Dreams, Reproductive Justice, we're continuing the conversation on how the carceral system affects families and communities. In the last episode, you met Marcus Alston, who is currently serving a life sentence. Although he has very little family, he has made deep connections with Donna, his former caseworker. So much so, she continues to advocate on his behalf. Today, I'd like you to meet Jovan Jackson. He's 32, born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, and comes from a family with 2 loving parents. He's been an entrepreneur, community advocate, and has committed himself to staying both civically and politically engaged in his community. He's also a convicted felon. I wanted to learn more about Jovan's life, starting from his birth in 1992 at Valley Hospital.
My first home was on Diana Drive, so that's right by the old Stop and Shop by like the outdoor swap meet. It was tough in the 90s in that area because there was drugs, there was gang banging, there was a lot of over-policing in that area. So that was a big influence from, the time, I want to say about 1 to about 8 years old. Those factors definitely influenced my upbringing.
Jovan grew up with 2 older brothers. He says he was closer to the younger one, who was still 10 years his senior. And when Jovan was growing up, his oldest brother, who was 11 years older, was always getting into trouble.
My brother was stabbed, and he nearly died. And I want to say his stabbing happened when I was about 7. So he had to be like 18, and he just had a kid. And that's just, he was, active in the gang himself, but that was just the lifestyle of, at that time, you seeing gangs were very normal, and they still have an impact on the district where I live now, because my district is split between Northtown and Westside. So even, the gangs from the 90s still play a division in that community. And my parents, they was just like, we can't continue to live in this, type of environment.
So the family moved further east, toward the mountains, near a street called Hollywood.
And that was, it was such a difference to go from inner city to suburbs. And, I was able to have a childhood in the suburbs, because there was still desert and you could wander, you could ride your bike. It was always hot. That has not changed. It has always been hot. Good memories from my childhood.
John Jackson.
Jovan's dad, John Jackson, tells us about Jovan's childhood.
Okay, Jovan, he was a good kid. He was a real caring kid. I can remember one time in December, me and him driving down Bonanza Road, and it was this guy. It seemed like a homeless guy, and it was starting to rain, the wind was blowing. And he was like, "Dad, that guy's cold." He was like, "He need a coat." And I was like, "Well, do you have a coat for him?" He's like, "Yeah, Dad, I'll give him my coat." So I pulled over, and he got out the truck, ran across the street, and I actually gave this man his coat. I said, "It's going to start raining pretty hard, and I don't know if this coat is going to do the job." So I said, "Let me get down the road before Jovan started asking him, can he come to the house?"
It's Anne Marie Roberts.
And this is Jovan's mom. She later tells me that this is her first interview ever talking about her life and her family's experiences.
He was always that way, very, very sensitive. You know, he is biracial, and we never thought anything about it in our household. But when we put him into kindergarten, I remember picking him up from school one day, and there was a bunch of kids in a big circle around him, and they were, "You're black, you're white, you're black," and they were all touching him. And I went home, I was mortified, and I told my husband about it, and we said, we need to do something, put him in karate so that he can protect himself or whatever.
Jovan tells us growing up, he didn't necessarily feel sensitive about his race, at least not consciously.
I didn't really understand that Black folks were minorities. Even I come from a very diverse family. You know, my mother's Italian, my dad's Black. I have white siblings, I have Black siblings. But growing up, I really didn't know, I didn't understand being a minority. I never felt like, oh, I was, the minority. Everyone looked like me. So that was definitely a luxury growing up. But you also still get, regardless, you go to you live in an all Black area, sometimes because what they teach you in school, you do still feel inferior. But, once I was around other, folks that didn't look like me, I realized, hey, I'm just as smart as anyone else.
Nevertheless, his parents decided to sign him up to learn some self-defense skills.
So we tried he put Jovan in karate, and he cried. We kept him in karate for 5 years, and he refused to hit anyone.
In his first week, he sat in the corner the whole week.
Oh, karate.
So eventually, the instructor got him to come out of the corner, and he started practicing with other kids.
Yeah, he was not very aggressive.
Though karate wasn't his thing, Jovan did find his place in another sport.
When he was 12, he came to us because we kept him in karate. He said, please, can I join football? And I was totally against it, but his dad was like, okay. So we put him in football. He was great at it. And I hated it because there was a lot of aggression, and I was always afraid he was going to get hurt. But he loved the sport. He loved working with the team. He did extremely well in it. He advanced in it. He was I think one year they gave him the MVP on the team. He kept that until he graduated high school. Yeah, so he was into sports.
At 16, Jovan's family changed forever.
I was at a friend's house, the Amatos. At the time, cell phones weren't common, so I received a house call, and it was told for me to come home immediately. I remember running home in a full sprint, not knowing what the emergency was. I remember getting home, and there was a park ranger vehicles in front of my parents' house. And when I went through the front door, it was 2 park rangers, folks with badges. And I just remember my mom. I can't even, everything else is kind of like a blur. I'm pretty sure that maybe my dad was there, but all I could really focus on was her. And I just remember, I didn't know what happened, but I gave her a hug, and and we both kind of were crying. I didn't know what happened, and then she said, Matthew died.
Matthew was Jovan's older brother. He was 26.
He was killed. And it's crazy, when you're in shock, it's like your body, wants to deny, what's real. So I kind of like chuckled because I didn't think it was real. I like in my head, I was thinking like, you have to be joking. And it was tough because, at the time I had another brother that was in prison, always in trouble with the law. Now, I had one brother that was killed, and then I have another brother that's incarcerated. And I literally went from that moment in life at 16 in 2008. I literally went from being the baby boy to, in my head, the oldest child. And so that was the day that it happened. And, literally in that moment, it was traumatic, but it was like a moment where like I became self-actualized that life is short, and you gotta take care of the people that you love, and you have to grow up. So that was the moment.
Facing the devastating grief of losing a child, the family grieved in different ways. At this point, Jovan began experimenting with drugs. It started with marijuana.
I kind of checked out. I'm sorry. I wasn't there for Jovan during that time. I was a mess. So, yes, he started smoking marijuana at 16. And I'm going to be totally honest. We let it go. I was dealing with a lot. So I kind of just looked the other way, felt it was all right. It was, I knew he was going through his things. Well, to be honest, Jovan was like always a straight-laced kid. He was good in school. He was respectful, polite. And then everyone would say, well, it's just marijuana. And we didn't say anything about it. We didn't comment on it. We just let it lie.
Well, I would comment on it, that him smoking marijuana. I told him just like my father told me. When you smoke marijuana, it's going to lead into different things. That's the same thing my father told me. And I smoked marijuana, and it led to different things. So I didn't listen to my father. He didn't listen to me. So
For a second, it seemed like Jovan was doing great. He graduated from high school, started college, and got his first job at 18. He was helping people on disability with their rehabilitation.
My first job was in rehabilitative services. I got that like right at the age of 18. There was a recession at the time. I couldn't even get a job at a grocery store, but it was this mental health agency that was hiring. And I ended up working for them, and I really enjoyed the work. I never knew anything about mental health services growing up. When I started doing that mental health job, I realized, I'm good at caring for people and caring about people. And that was a big part of the job, is like genuinely caring for folks.
At 19, Jovan started his own company, helping clients with mental health crisis support. His success allowed him to purchase his first house, a custom-built home in Henderson, Nevada, and a Mercedes.
So Jovan graduated. He went to college. He started a business. He was doing things so rapidly, so very fast. 18 years old, had his own business. 19 years old, bought a home in Henderson, Nevada. Brand new home, brand spanking new, was built for him. Drove a Mercedes, money in the bank, everything, all these businesses that he had going on. We didn't realize that he was doing more than marijuana. He was always go, go, go. We used to tell him, you need to slow down, you're doing too much. But we didn't know that he was doing anything else until it was too late.
Things took a dark turn. Jovan, who had been taking increasingly harder drugs, took something that he said immediately changed him profoundly.
I didn't notice, but I heard from some of his friends and his sisters and brothers that he was dabbling with, saying to use it to kind of stay up to do his college work. He had all these businesses going on. But we didn't notice that he was using anything harder than marijuana at the time. He was just so busy, and what happened, it just hit him all of a sudden. I remember we was at a Valentine's Day concert, and he called me. He was talking about space and rocks in the yard, Mars. So from that point, we knew something that just hit him out of the blue.
It was our big thing that he was attempting suicide. He was not himself. He would talk to himself. We were rushing him into the hospital because he kept saying he wanted it all to end.
It was methamphetamines.
Methamphetamine is a stimulant that speeds up the body system that comes as a pill or powder. Crystal meth is an altered version of the prescription drug that is cooked with over-the-counter drugs in meth labs. Also called crank, ice, or tina, it can be smoked, snorted, or injected to intensify the effects. It's highly addictive and can cause agitation, increased heart rate and blood pressure, increased respiration and body temperature, anxiety, paranoia, and high doses can cause convulsions, cardiovascular collapse, stroke, or death.
My faith is what made me successful. And I lost sight of that. And just being young and you think nothing could stop you. So you drink and smoke and, popping pills. And then I finally did the one drug that, changed me immediately. And I lost my mind. I thought my mind was fried because I couldn't speak. I couldn't talk. Like, you would talk to me and I would just be blank and I would just stare at you. Like, those people to be talking to the sky and you be tripping down off downtown and all that. Mm-hmm. Them real people with family and their mamas and daddies and stuff. Like, they was kids at one point, and they remember that. You remember who you were. And it's just like you can't control who you are now.
When his parents talked about that time, they emphasized several times that the young man calling them from concerts and threatening suicide, that was not the Jovan they knew.
His eyes were like a shark. They were dead.
He had cold eyes.
Coldest eyes you ever saw. They were had no emotion or feeling to them. We knew that it wasn't him. We tried to get him into a facility. Here in the state of Nevada, there is nothing for an adult that is long-term. So we brought him to our house. We begged him to stay with us. But again, he's an adult and we could not keep him. We actually called the police and the police came out and they said, just say that he hit you and we'll arrest him. And I said, but he didn't hit me. He didn't put his hands on me. They said, well, that's the only way that we can take him because he was just so off. It was not him anymore.
With his consent, his parents sent him to Seven Hills Treatment Center, a behavioral hospital that treats both mental health and substance abuse issues. But he didn't stay for long.
He released himself. And I remember picking him up. He didn't tell me that he had released himself. He had been there for 5 days, and I was hoping that maybe he was coming back to us. But he didn't, and instead he said, no, I'm going to go to my house. And he went to his own house. And from there, it was all bad. Things just got worse. Within 2 days, he was arrested for robbing a pawn shop. Yeah.
You're listening to American Dreams, Reproductive Justice. I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. If you'd like more information about the work that Make It Work Nevada does, or about reproductive justice, visit our website, makeitworknevada.org.
I was in and out the mental hospital. I was a gun owner. I was suicidal. But, when you're in those mental hospitals, it costs like $2,000-$3,000 a week to stay in one of those things. So I didn't want to be a financial burden to my family either. And so I ended up discharging myself.
Jovan got in touch with someone he considered a brother at the time, who was recently discharged from his position as an Army Ranger. Jovan said this was all his friend knew, and he was struggling to adapt to civilian life. So the friend convinced Jovan to get involved in a robbery he was planning.
I didn't really want to be a part of it. But at the time, I was desperate. I was suicidal. I didn't want to be around anyone. That's enough reason for somebody to commit a crime just so they could get locked up, because they don't want to be alive. So he convinced me to go with him, but I couldn't go through with it. So I just ended up staying in the car. And, he ended up robbing a store. And they had footage of the vehicle because we robbed a store in a Mercedes.
What went through your mind when you heard that? Your good kid, the one who was so gentle and not aggressive, that he would be in a position to rob a store.
I believe the person that was with him knew his situation, that it was kind of messed up, and he just persuaded him. And he fell in the trap of the persuasion of going with him. Like I say, Jovan, at the time, he had money in the bank. He had a nice car. He had no reason to rob anybody. It was just his mindset, and his friend talked him into it.
And I think that he truly wanted to die. So he felt that maybe he would die in this situation. The whole thing was so crazy. Jovan was actually on the phone with me, while this robbery was occurring. Even as crazy as he was not going to go in and do anything. So he was supposed to be like a lookout. He went in and bought his nephew a PlayStation and paid for it and bought the extra protection plan and gave them his ID. Gave them his Nevada driver's license. Somebody that's about to rob someplace, would you do that? He was charged with all these things, and we thought he'll finally be able to get some help. Crazy as that is, we didn't think that they would send him to prison because he was definitely out of his mind at the time. But he refused to go to any treatment centers because whatever drugs he was on, they influenced him for a very long time. And so him refusing to go into the treatment centers, they had no choice. The judge had no choice but to sentence him to prison. So that's where he went.
Jovan and his friend were sentenced to 2 to 5 years in prison, a relatively light sentence for the crime.
It was painful, but we were relieved because the simple fact, Vaughn, he was doing a lot of crazy stuff. And we were to the point where we thought that somebody was going to end up killing him. So I figured if he got locked up, he could be alive. I'm not going to say that it's safe, but it's better than being out on the streets, arguing with people and just running up down the freeway in your car, flying, police is chasing you. That could get to be pretty dangerous. So I figured in prison, they'll keep him in one spot and he'll get a chance to get some of his senses back.
Jovan vividly remembers walking out of the courtroom after being sentenced.
It was tough. The first thing that pops in my mind is I'm in the orange jumpsuit and my handcuff in the courtroom, and the correctional officers, they take you out. And I just remember, looking at my father, and he was like, my father is my superhero, but just looking out, he looked so old and so weak and so powerless. And he knew they couldn't protect his son.
The first thing that prison did for Jovan was to get him to sober up.
I didn't become more coherent until I was, in a cell for about 90 days and on medication. When I was able to rehabilitate and I got the isolation that I needed, I got the solitude that I needed, I got on the medication that I needed, and it didn't cost nothing to my family because I'm in there on a criminal case. I really got my rehabilitation when I went to jail. Catching that case, it ultimately saved my life because I was suicidal. I think the day SWAT came and got me, like I held a pistol to my head, counting the pounds of pressure. That shouldn't have to be, someone's story. It should be a place where people could get that help for free to prevent these tragedies, to prevent somebody committing a crime, to prevent a shooting. So I did find rehabilitation with my incarceration.
Jovan tells me about his time he spent in a firefighting camp in rural Nevada.
I was fortunate enough to, after I was done with my jail sentence and I did my solitude in the high desert, I was eligible to go to a work camp. And I think that was instrumental because the work camp made me feel productive again. Often in this society, we're judged about the work that we could produce. So being at a working camp with the Nevada Division of Forestry, it really helped me find purpose again. It made me feel part of the community because we literally worked in the community. We worked on ranches, we worked in cities. I had chainsaws, cutting trees. There's no law enforcement around. And then also, fighting those fires. It helped me feel like a person again. You are ultimately risking your life for the state of Nevada without any real compensation. That definitely felt like slavery, to work from 8 in the morning to about, 5, 6 p.m. And you only made $1 for a day. And all you could do with that $1 is maybe get on the phone for a few minutes or maybe get some noodles. That definitely feels like slavery. Anytime you could pay someone $1 for an entire day, then it's definitely slavery.
When Jovan calls prison labor slavery, he's not exaggerating. Constitutions in 21 states, as well as Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico today in 2024, reads like this. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Basically, we abolish slavery unless you're in prison.
So the first thing in terms of when is the work voluntary?
That's Howard Watts III, a Nevada State Assemblyman who has worked since 2021 to create an amendment to Nevada State Constitution to strike down the exception clause. This amendment appears on the ballot this November as question number 4. We spoke to him about the history of prison labor and how it looks now.
We saw chain gangs, which, we see things like that on TV and movies, and then convict leasing, which was basically the same thing. So the chain gang was basically just forcing people to do manual labor at the prisons, building the prison, or just as a form of punishment, or having them go out and work on the public roads and do all this other kind of backbreaking labor. Convict leasing was basically the same thing, except they had a company that would pay them, and then they would provide that free prison labor, basically, which looks a lot like slavery. So while those practices have kind of gone away, we still have labor programs. We have the prison industries programs, which are very similar, partnerships with the private sector to get labor. Sometimes they do per piece work. And so they have wages that at an hourly rate are well below the minimum wage. And so basically incarcerated people are exempt from minimum wage laws. And then we have the incentive to try and get into these things. One is it helps get time off your sentence.
Sammy Werkheiser, whose story you'll hear in the next episode, tells us about prison labor in the state of New York, where she was incarcerated from 2013 to 2019.
In New York State, when you start working, the very first job you will have when you become an incarcerated individual in New York is you'll be a porter, and a porter is a cleaner. And the starting pay for that is between 9 and 11 cents an hour. a grade 4 pay, which is a higher pay or close to the highest pay, is 25 cents an hour. The highest paying job at Bedford is DMV. So they actually have a Department of Motor Vehicle office that incarcerated individuals run. It's like a call center, and they get paid more than 25 cents an hour. But it's still, I might be wrong, but I feel like it's like 54 cents an hour. So it's not a lot of money. Okay. But you do get, just like in the real world, how you get reviews of your performance, you do get that. And the officer at your station or your job detail can give you an increase in pay. So like if you start at 9 cents, you can get up to 14 cents as a cleaner. That sounds terrible when I say it out loud, and it is actually terrible. So the pay is exactly the same as it was in 1975. In New York, there has been no change in the amount of pay that incarcerated individuals get. There's been no cost of living increase, and there are proposals for legislation to get that increased. Some are trying for at least $1 an hour. Some are trying for actual minimum wage. There's been no luck so far for any change there.
Marcus, who you met in episode 1, talks about being a canteen operator while incarcerated in North Carolina.
Easy picture for people. It's like running a corner store inside the prison or the prison. You're the manager. You inventory your stock. Sometimes you get to make suggestions on the types of products that get inventoried and purchased, and then you sell everything to the entire prison population. And they make the profit, obviously.
While working as a canteen operator, Marcus was paid $7 an hour. In Nevada, the same job can range between 50 cents and $3.25 an hour, while commissary markups average 40%. So a can of tuna would cost $3.27 in prison, compared to $1.09 at Walmart.
Yes, ma'am. That's the most anybody can make in that position, or most job positions here. So most prisons here in North Carolina only have one canteen operator for each canteen store. However, there are some prisons that have assistant canteen operators, and I believe they make $4.80 per week. I just never have been an assistant canteen operator. But then, I mean, there are little perks to being a canteen operator because of the amount of money you're allowed to lose, or if you do such a good job before the inventory count every month, they'll actually just comp you a certain amount of money to get from the canteen store. So typically, in a month, you might make $28 having worked in the store as a canteen operator. I think my best month, I was like 17 cents under. And they were like, yeah, that's not enough money to be under, take $20. So I made $48 that month.
And so do you have any idea of how they set the wages for these different jobs?
No, I'm not entirely sure. I did some research on it a couple years ago, but mainly when I was trying to petition for higher wages. And I was just looking for a legal statute for something that we could change. However, the only thing that I was able to find, it just said that no prisoner was allowed to receive regular state or federally approved wages. So I don't know how they said it. I mean, I just know it's not right, obviously, but the only thing I can think to do about it is talk to people like yourselves and try to push the agenda from outside of prison. I feel like I'm a commission-based person. So I feel like if a store does really well or a person does really well on their job, you should move them up to what's adequate.
You've been listening to Season 2 of American Dreams, Reproductive Justice. brought to you by Make It Work Nevada. If you like what you're hearing, check out Season 1 and the rest of Season 2. Episodes available on your favorite streaming platform. Were you surprised that that was still in our Constitution, or that it was there at all? Or were you aware?
I was aware of it before I went to prison. So I remember telling the dudes in prison about it, because they were like, oh, they can't treat us like this. They can't treat us like this. And I bust up my book and I'd be like, I say this right in the Constitution. We technically slaves. So they could do a lot here. And I think even though people are like, oh, no, that's just what it said, like, no, that translates to something, because I know what slavery looked like, 400 years ago, and I know what the prison systems look like now. So you can't tell me it doesn't mean anything. It means something. And I like to say it's more systemic, because it comes from a policy. It's easy to justify something when these people are technically classified as slaves, less than human.
And so, again, I think that raises the question, if this allows you to hopefully get out sooner, it is voluntary. No one is explicitly forced to work anymore. But when you look at the costs and benefits, it's pretty clear why people would work, including for very, very, very little compensation in those scenarios. And so that is the issue that folks are looking to address. And I believe that, just because you're incarcerated, that your labor has value, and it should have the same value and be subject to kind of the same rules that other people's are, such as the minimum wage and some basic working conditions. When it comes to firefighters in particular, the wages have been an issue. The other issue is that they cannot get jobs as firefighters upon release. And my understanding of that is they can't get some of the EMT and other certifications with a felony record. So that is one of the major roadblocks. So even though they have the experience, doesn't matter what experience they have, how good a job they did, it's an instant block from them being able to turn that over into a career once they get released.
By the way, I asked Jovan if he had considered turning his firefighting experience into a career outside of prison. He told me no, but he does agree with the Assemblyman's perspective.
If we're able to fight fires and risk our lives for the state of Nevada, but, I can't get a regular job somewhere because of my background, like that's an issue.
We had the opportunity to talk to Jason Grove, an attorney in Utah who has also practiced in other states, such as Colorado.
And a client who had been previously incarcerated in the state prison, and he ended up applying and getting onto one of their fire work crews. And so he was able to leave the facility and then go out and fight forest fires. And he ended up getting certificates in firefighting. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about that aspect was that he was able to leave prison, put on his firefighting gear, and then when he was out in the world, people treated him like a firefighter and not like somebody who was incarcerated. And for him, that was like a really hopeful proposition about, well, when I get out of prison, then this might be a career that I can do, because I enjoyed it. It was rewarding, and it definitely made me feel very positively about myself. The reality, though, is even though he got his certifications and he had the skill set, is that when he was released with a felony conviction, that was actually not an option for him. That he was out there and he put his life on the line while he was incarcerated. He didn't have to do that. That was completely voluntary. And he's excited to get into that line of work. But the reality is that he just would never be hired, even though he had the skill set. I mean, one of the biggest issues for people leaving incarceration is you need to find housing, you need to find a job, you need to have transportation between those two. And often your parole agreement, your release agreement, is that you have to be employed. And the one skill set that he developed in prison, which he was not handsomely rewarded financially for, he was unable to use on the outside.
So given all that, I had to ask Jovan, do you think that you were rehabilitated because of your incarceration or in spite of it?
In spite of my incarceration, I think we could have these same tools in society without them being jails and prisons. There should be a place where people could check in and get free mental health and free solitude.
While the drugs were coming out of Jovan's system, his parents were back at home in Vegas, hoping that he was really getting better.
And we just worried that, God, please just make his mind whole again, that we don't have to be taking care of him for the rest of his life. We were preparing ourselves that we would never have our son back. But we were fortunate. God was looking out for him, and he came back to us. We talked to him every single day.
This emotional and financial support is one thing that Jovan credits as central to his recovery and lack of recidivism. Why is it that you think that so many people aren't rehabilitated then through the prison system?
A lot of people lack support. Family support is a huge factor in life. They don't have the resources that they need to come to. So when you're in that position where you're almost in a minor survival, you either going to try to cope and you might do a drug. You might do something that ends you back in the jail system so you don't have to be in survival state because you did the time. You are receiving a lifetime punishment. So it's hard for people to focus on mental health recovery. It's hard for people to focus on their drug addiction when they can't attain the most basic things like housing, employment, education. And that was unique about my situation. I was able to come home to a job, to a house, to family, to support. But that's not the reality for everyone.
Jovan also says that decreasing stigma around mental illness will lead to more opportunities for recovery.
And sometimes, especially with mental health, we lack the education on actually trying to be treated for a certain illness. It has just become common where mental health is a conversation, that it is something that needs to be treated, that needs to be addressed. There's a point in time that if somebody was on drugs, that they were just a criminal. Now we're looking at it, okay, this person is a victim of a drug that now is addicted. So I think it's these old stigmas. Also, my background of being a mental health provider, it gave me an insight on, knowing the steps of recovery, knowing the steps of treatment, and taking mental health very seriously. It's a real thing.
Are you ever concerned that he'll backpedal into drugs?
No. I say no with a conviction, but you know what? You don't know. Any one of us can stumble and fall. But I don't see Jovan ever going back. Ever. 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 I mean, he is so grateful. He goes to church. He is close to the pastor and the first lady. He is so thankful to God.
And she's right. Jovan is determined not to return to bad habits.
I could just sense, if I go back to what I did or back to anything close to it, I'm going to literally lose my mother. And she don't stop talking to me, not because, she loves me to death. And that's what. So I really had to make that decision, do you want to kill your parents from, the things that you are doing, that you did? So we never had a conversation about it, but your actions speak a lot.
In spite of the family's increased awareness of mental health struggles, Anne Marie says that they've never really talked about Jovan's breakdown and subsequent incarceration.
No, we don't talk about that time. Move forward. We celebrate holidays together. We live near each other. We stand up for each other. We campaign for one another. We don't miss a beat in each other's life. But no, we do not talk about that time.
It's kind of put it in the past. We just keep going forward.
I don't cry. I was raised in a household, all girls, and my father wanted boys. first generation in this country. And so I was raised to be strong. I never shed a tear until my son passed away. And then it's like I cry now. And it's still, that's a hard emotion for me and any of my children. So, yeah, it's a lot of stigmas, but we try to make every minute positive.
But in our conversation, she started to open up to the idea of therapy and emotional conversations, though she says it was something she never would have seen herself doing before all of this.
So therapy is not like something that we really talk about, which we should have. We should have gotten family therapy. And so what happened? Things snowballed. And unfortunately, Jovan paid this gigantic price of carrying around this burden of losing his brother in this such traumatic way.
When I talked to Jovan a few weeks after my call with his parents, he told me that they had finally talked about it.
It felt good being acknowledged that we have overcome some tough times in life. And then after, your discussion, we did have a family discussion about like how we don't bring up the trauma that, that our families face. And maybe we should have more discussions because often we just bury our trauma and just try to keep moving forward. And I'm starting to realize that in my adult life that, I thought I was over the death of my brother, which I guess that's not something you really get over. But I realized that certain things I do is still me coping with his death and not having those discussions with my family about the things we face might be one of the reasons why I'm still coping in a negative way.
One of the things Jovan and his brother have been able to talk about is the difference in their prison experiences.
My brother is white, and I'm a black, ambiguous male. And so our prison experiences are different because prison based everything off race. And it's unfortunate. My experience of being incarcerated was different as a black male, that, I was able to just be a part of this group of people and, no one questioned that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we had two different experiences. And then he did most of his time in prison, like actual, prison, solitude, high level type of restrictions. And I was more at a low entry, I was at a work camp most of my incarceration. I was in an area where we had a pond, and the only thing that was separating you from leaving was a fence that you could hop. So like we had two different experiences of incarceration. So, but yeah, we do compare, and we more bring humor about it, about, the soups and the things that you eat and the workouts that you do, like burpees and just the culture, and we try to bring in a positive life, but two different experiences for sure.
The thing they have in common, though, is their family. And with that support, both the brothers have gotten better.
My brother is doing very well. So he has a whole bunch of kids. He just had a newborn. His record is sealed. He hasn't been in trouble in decades. I think he was released around, I want to say like 2010. He was released. And since then, he hasn't gotten in any trouble, never committed any new crime. And his record is sealed. And he's a happy father. And things are good for him. But also, he had that support, which a lot of folks coming out of prison don't have that.
On July 1st, 2019, Assembly Bill 431 of the 80th session of the Nevada State Legislature took effect and allowed any Nevada resident convicted of a felony to immediately have their right to vote restored. On that same day, Jovan became the first formerly incarcerated person with a felony record in the state of Nevada to register to vote.
Politics, government, and voting, and who you get into office and who's really willing to fight for these issues. Formerly incarcerated people need to vote. We have been left out for decades. When someone can't keep you accountable, you don't really You don't give them any attention. So if we want to be heard, if we want to be seen, if we want to see our communities be empowered, we need to vote. We need to vote for the people that are representing these communities, that are allocating funds back to impacted communities. So it's so important that we vote, because that's why our communities look the way they do. Like, we think that, oh, the hood just looks like the hood just by accident. No, that's systemic oppression. Like, that happened through government, through a process, through segregation, through redlining.
Make It Work Nevada was a part of the coalition of activists who worked to pass AB 431. And I was present when Jovan filled out his voter registration application. But I realized I never asked him how it felt in the moment.
It's empowering. It's very empowering. I remember that day very vividly. It was in July 2019. It was very hot. I just got back from Nelson's Landing, and I believe it was around Independence Day. And I remember I was at the First AME Church right there on Cary and Revere. And I remember telling everyone that this day felt like it was my own version of independence. Like, it was my own Independence Day.
Jovan's excitement for politics and civic engagement didn't stop at the voting booth. Not long after he completed his voter registration, he decided to run for office. He says he believes he can make a difference in his community. And so tell me about Jovan telling you that he decided he wanted to run to be an assemblyman.
Are you crazy? Why would you want to do that? Why, Jovan? That is exactly us.
I asked him how much does it pay, and it didn't sound too good to me.
But he explains, that this is what's in his heart. This is what he needs to do. He needs to watch out for others. He needs to create change.
Whether they understand it or not, the entire family is helping with the campaign.
Whatever he needs. Brothers, sisters, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, everyone.
I ran my campaign off of the 3 issues. That was that I would fight for affordable housing, I will fight for criminal justice reform, and I will fight for access to free mental health services.
Jovan almost didn't run this year because he was diagnosed with cancer.
Just to be 100 transparent, I had testicular cancer. I got surgery. So I had to get one of my testicles removed. And that's, as a man, that is like, it's heartbreaking. It's like you almost feel like it's the end of the world. But because we don't talk about this and we don't talk about our health, and then come to find out that the cancer spread to my lung, and I had a 2.5-inch tumor on my lung. And so I did the chemotherapy.
During chemotherapy, Jovan had taken a break from the campaign and considered dropping out altogether.
I did the surgery, did the chemotherapy, and I was able to recover. So in February, I was notified that the tumor on my lung was down to like 7 millimeters. And that's when I decided, I said, if I get good news in February, I'm going to run for office. I got the news that I needed.
Though the cancer's in remission, campaigning remains stressful.
It's been an emotional roller coaster. I have been attacked. Running for office, you're in the public eye. Even when I ran for councilman last time, I was called N-words. And, you're putting your family in the public eyes, and you're putting yourself in the public eye. And so people email you, people text you mean, nasty things. People may threaten you. But there's people that out there that hate you, absolutely hate you. But you do the things for the people that you love, regardless of who hates you. The two is always going to exist, So I just make sure I do it for the people that I love.
And now he says he's full speed ahead. He even credits the succession of traumatic events from his childhood as a motivator for him.
But it also motivated me to be the person I am today, because, I started my first business at 19. I didn't let people say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. I had the mindset like, life is short. I could literally die tomorrow.
And then final, for real, last question. What's your American dream?
So the American dream has been sold to us to have a house with a fence and a lawn. And those are great things. But I say my American dream is to exist without having to produce income. When we live in a world, if you stop working, you almost cease to exist. You're not able to support yourself. I should be able to have a place called home, a safety net. I should never have to worry about getting housing. I should never worry about getting health care. I should never have to worry about being able to afford healthy food. That is my American dream. Living in a world that I could thrive in and not just exist and not just survive.
Next week on American Dreams.
I started asking questions about what is being done in these facilities to help people struggling with these issues. And what we learned was very little. Very little was being done.
This is painful to say. I don't feel that he had a full understanding that I was his mother. I think he knew that I was his mom. He called me mom, but I had never tucked him into bed. There were so many things about his caretaking that I just had not actually experienced myself.
If she's living her life, she reaches out when she needs me, and I'm there for her, but it's not like I would want a father and daughter relationship.
All of the stuff that has happened to us was what I would say revenge. It was like delayed revenge. It sounds crazy, and it is.
Legal disclaimer. Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy, does not endorse any candidate or candidate committee. We just tell good stories.
American Dreams Reproductive Justice Season 2 was hosted, created, and executive produced by Erica Washington. Associate producer, Simone Andres. Edited by Erica Washington, Simone Andres, and Will Black. Researcher, Simone Andres. Editing and music supervision by Will Black for Black Gypsy Music. Graphic design by Mingo Colasso. Special thanks to KUNV 91.5. And a special thank you to Johnny Five of the Flowbots for allowing us to use his song American Dreams as our theme music. This podcast is empowered by Make It Work Nevada, a project of Tides Advocacy. For more information, please visit makeitworknevada.org and find us on all the socials to learn more about our work to create a world we can all thrive in.